It's Friday. Happy Friday. On Fridays, we celebrate. What are you celebrating today? Put it in the comments. One thing that you're really celebrating about yourself today. And the thought is what we focus on expands. And when we focus on celebrating something, we create more of it. So you get to celebrate every single thing, big and small. You know, celebrating the big things is fun and it's easy. And sometimes it's easy. And sometimes we get to wake up and say, you know what, I'm celebrating that I woke up this morning. I'm celebrating, like, it was just a joke. I was coaching with a team, and we'd be like talking about celebrating. And some days it was like, I'm just celebrating I got up and brushed my teeth this morning, and I get to celebrate all those things. So hopefully you're celebrating all things big and small, and put them in the comments. One thing you're celebrating today. I am celebrating taking this afternoon off. We're doing a beach day. I'm really super excited about it. So I would love to hear what you are celebrating. So I had a beautiful conversation about our thought of it's inevitable. And looking back, I've had different periods of time where I wanted something. Actually, I'll even go further than that. I didn't even know I wanted something. And then all of a sudden, in a moment, I wanted something, or I gave myself permission to want something. And so I'll just tell the story actually. It was about 4.5 years ago or so. My thought about leaving my job came to me. And that sounds funny, right? Like, what do you mean it just came to you? Because when I got this job, when I got my corporate job 20 years ago, my thought was, this is where I'll retire. This was the belief that I had created in that moment, that this will be the job. I'm going to put in my, probably it would have been about 40 years because I started so young. And I would put in my 40, 45 years and then retire. So that was always my thought. That was always the belief that I had. And one day I was at work, and my oldest was in high school, and she forgot her key, and she was locked out of the house. So I had to leave work and go get her in the house. And in that moment, for the first time ever, I had the thought, what if, because I was working a side business at the time, but my thought was, what if I got to work from home and run my own business? And it was this scary thought that the first time I'd ever actually thought the thought, given myself permission to think it. And in that moment, there was this deeper, I wish I had a better word for it, but I don't. But it was a deeper knowing in my body that actually that was really what I wanted. It was almost, I like to think of this, so I'm very visual. So I like to explain things in pictures. And my visual for this, my visual for like a breakthrough or an aha, is a key, like sliding beautifully into a lock and turning, and the visual of all the tumblers just boom, falling and unlocking a thought or unlocking something. So that was the tumbler moment for me where, oh my gosh, I think I want to work from home. And because it was the tumbler moment, like my body was like, yes, this is actually this is what we want. My body was telling my brain. And I couldn't have that thought any time before that very moment. And possibly other people had left the company, or I had talked about that idea with other people in the past, but it wasn't until that very moment where it was locked into my body that this is actually what's going to, it was a deep knowing for me that this is what my path was going to be. I didn't know how. I had no idea how. In fact, I thought the thought and I thought, yeah, that's a pipe dream. That's not something that's possible. Except my body knew it was. So it's almost that moment where it's actually like that spark is ignited. So I would love for you to think about a time where that happened. And it doesn't have to be a giant occasion. It could be I don't know if Jen is still watching. Maybe it's that moment where the thought was, I could be a coach. I could coach other people. And there is this one moment that everything before wasn't possible, and then in that moment it all of a sudden becomes possible. And like things can happen in the snap of a finger and in a moment and in a phone call that I'm locked out, and then all of a sudden I'm feeling a possibility of quitting my job. So that's the thought. And then once we have that thought, okay, I can quit my job. And because my body just knew this was actually the right path, what I learned, because I didn't know this before, was that once your body knows, then you know it's inevitable. It's inevitable. It's just going to happen. And we can let go of how we think it's supposed to look, how other people want it to look for you, and instead surrendering the outcome, knowing this is what's going to happen, and just showing up every day with that possibility, with that thought of this is what's going to happen. And the question was, I've got a call coming in, hang on. I don't know how to fix this. Okay, I think I did it. Okay. So the next thought is, now that I know, like, how do I get to show up today? So how do I get to show up today? So when I first thought the thought, and I didn't totally do this until much, a few years after I had first initially thought it, but how do I show up every day knowing that what I want is inevitable? If I'm leaving my job to run my business, or if I'm going to step in and become a coach, how do I show up today, like in that space? Oh, okay, this is, and only so you would just go through and be like, wow, like connect in with your mind, how would I show up? Oh, I would, increase my clients. I would be more visible. I would reach out to people, like whatever is true for you. What does that look like? Because once you start showing up in that space, that inevitability gets closer and it starts to really form. You really get to see. So it's really less about control. And I love me some control. I was just thinking about that this morning. Like, I really love like orchestrating things and controlling things. And the more I realize that I'm in that space of wanting to control how things look and outcomes, the more disconnected I actually am from my inner knowing. And when I can actually let go and say, it's going to unfold. Like, I'm going to take action. Of course, I love action, but I'm going to take action and let go of control of how the outcome is going to look, which is not easy. This is not always the easiest thing to do. In fact, I would argue that a lot of people come to me and say, like, that's the hardest thing. And I would agree, because it's a practice. It's a practice every day to show up and say, how do I enjoy the process? How do I enjoy, what am I doing today? How do I be in this space, showing up, even though my circumstances don't look like the outcome I'm wanting, like quitting my job is the example. But how would I show up today if that's what the outcome was? Knowing in my body, in my inner knowing, that is an inevitability that this is going to manifest. This is going to unfold for you. So as I say that, I just like comment or hit like, tell me what's coming up for you, because sometimes I think about this, I have this thought a lot, going like, oh, it's so clear in my mind. And then when I try to explain it, I'm like, is it as clear when I explain it as I think that it is? So if that makes sense, let me know. Hit, yeah, like me too. I always like to know that I'm not alone, if that's landing for you. And, what is that thing for you right now? Or what was that thing in that past where that moment happened and you had the thought, and all of a sudden it was a before and after. It was like that you don't even remember thinking that thought until that moment. And then after, that was the thought that was possible for you. And I think that's another really important piece, because when you have that inner knowing, that's that moment when it feels like in your head, you're like, how am I going to do it? But in your body, you're like, this is actually possible. I can pull this shit off. I can actually do this, and I'm having those moments a little bit right now where being down here in Dominican Republic and looking at real estate yesterday was so much fun. And I had that moment again where I said to myself, this is inevitable, and I don't need to control how it looks right now. I want to. I want to control it. And I don't need to control it in this moment. I know that it's inevitable. My body was super aligned yesterday. It was activated. So moving forward is going to be really easy because I know that it's coming. It's in the cards. I don't need to control how it looks. I just get to take action and say, what do I get to do? How do I show up in this space of inevitability and possibility? All right. So let me know what you're celebrating today. Tell me what's inevitable for you. And I hope you have an incredible day. And I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.